No, put me back.
In a future where oceans have swallowed most of the world, memories have become the last safe place to escape. Nick Bannister, a war veteran turned private investigator, runs a service in the half-submerged ruins of Miami, guiding people back through their past. But when he falls in love, his own memories turn into a cage. Humanity had already been battered by a 4-year war when the seas finally rose and erased entire continents. Billions died. The cities that survived became fractured fortresses, separated by walls of privilege. The wealthy recreated golden enclaves, the middle class waded through flooded streets, and the poor drowned in decay, fighting daily just to endure. Nick's livelihood is the memory bank, where tanks of water and specialized equipment let clients relive their most cherished moments. He runs it with Emily, a hardened ex-soldier, and even offers discounts to veterans like Hank, a man who spends every session replaying life with the dog he once adored. Nick isn't just a technician, he's a careful guide, soothing voices and steady presence, carrying people through fragile recollections. Every session is archived in a private vault, locked away forever. Among his unusual visitors is Elsa, a destitute woman who constantly relives an awkward romantic date with an elderly man. Her strange choice unsettles Nick and Emily, but they don't ask questions. One night, as Nick prepares to close up, a final client arrives, a striking singer named May, in a red dress. She claims she lost her keys and wants to search her memories to recover them. She undresses before entering the tank, leaving her earrings behind, aware of the effect she has on him. They find the keys easily, but what lingers with Nick is her voice, raw, aching, unforgettable. Later, he returns the earrings, and what begins as curiosity deepens into intimacy. They fall in love. He learns she sings in a rundown bar, and soon she becomes the only light in his dark existence. They share nights together, mornings on rooftops, and quiet talks about how living too much in the past can trap a person. For Nick, she feels like a future, but then, May vanishes. Months pass without a trace, and Nick becomes consumed. The romance, the laughter, every touch. He replays them endlessly in his machine, searching for answers. Emily urges him to let her go, but he clings to the memories, even as his business falters, and the city sinks deeper into ruin. Hints of her linger, a bruise on her hand in one recollection, an earring found floating outside. Each small sign fuels his obsession. When called to assist at the police station, Nick dives into the failing memories of a dying drug dealer. In his mind, Nick finds May again, dressed to seduce, performing for men tied to the city's criminal underworld. She refused their drugs, was beaten for it, and barely spared by the intervention of St. Joe, a ruthless crime lord and a corrupt cop. For Nick, the official investigation no longer matters. What matters is May, and uncovering why she left, or if she was taken from him. At the police station, the assistant prosecutor cuts short the unproductive interrogation, shifting the questioning toward May. That single name ignites a violent reaction in Falk, whose fragile mind and body are already collapsing. With precious moments slipping away, Nick takes control and pushes to see Falk's final encounter with May, an event buried 5 years in the past. What unfolds shatters his illusions. May, far from the angel he believed her to be, is revealed as a drug addict who betrayed the very criminals she had entangled herself with. She had robbed St. Joe of his entire stash and humiliated Falk in the process. For Nick, the revelation is devastating. The woman he loved no longer fits the memory he clings to, and he can no longer tell where truth ends and fantasy begins. Determined to find answers, Nick travels to New Orleans, retracing the shadows of May's past. He seeks out St. Joe, a ruthless crime boss and former soldier who survived the worst of the flood. Posing as an old associate of the drug trade, Nick tries to bluff his way in, but St. Joe is no fool. Trained in interrogation and cruelty, he sees through the lie instantly. Amused yet pitying, he tells Nick bluntly, May is not who he thinks she is. She's dangerous, manipulative, and two-faced. Sympathy doesn't save him. St. Joe orders his men to drown Nick in a massive aquarium. Just when death seems certain, Emily storms the bar with the precision of the sniper she once was. Cold and efficient, she eliminates several guards, blasts open the tank, and frees Nick. In the chaos, Nick drives a syringe into the eye of one attacker while Emily wounds St. Joe with a shot that leaves him gasping for breath. Dying, he spills what little he knows of May, pleading for release. True to her nature, Emily grants him a quick end, but St. Joe's death leaves Nick with no clear trail. Desperate, he plunges deeper into memory fragments, where May once described drifting on the open sea, believing she was about to die, only to be rescued by a woman in a floating house. That recollection sparks something in Nick. Emily. She was the last person to see May before she vanished. Probing Emily's memories, he uncovers a disturbing truth. May had come to the memory bank, confiding in Emily about her addictions, her criminal ties, and her past traumas. Gaining Emily's trust, she lured her into a drunken haze. While Emily was sick in the bathroom, May stole the keys to the vault. It was no accident. May had been playing Nick for months, studying his habits, pretending affection, even learning the simple melody he often hummed at home. That tune turned out to be the password to his safe. With it, she unlocked the vault and stole memory recordings belonging to Elsa, the peculiar client obsessed with an elderly lover. Nick follows this new lead into the poorest quarters, seeking answers, but Elsa is already dead, murdered brutally. Witnesses recall seeing a red-haired woman, someone who fits May's description, at the crime scene. Back at the memory bank, Nick and Emily sift through fragments, connecting events like scattered puzzle pieces. One memory shows Nick himself wandering through a ruined building in search of May, only to be ambushed and beaten nearly to death. Reviewing the data, they identify his attacker, Cyrus Booth, a disgraced cop once tied to St. Joe, now operating as a rogue criminal, and possibly someone else's hired hand. Days later, the city erupts in chaos. Protests break out after the death of wealthy magnate Walter Sylvan. Many had hoped his downfall in court would force the rich to compensate those forced to live outside the walls. But justice never came. With Walter gone, all of his assets transfer to his widow, Tamara, and his son, Sebastian. Nick recalls that Tamara once visited the memory bank, and as he compares her recollections with Elsa's, a connection emerges. The same man appears in both. He realizes Elsa was Walter's mistress, and her child, Freddie, is Walter's illegitimate son. Emily sees Nick drowning in obsession and begs him to abandon the case before he loses himself completely. Their argument ends with Nick firing her. For Emily, there's still a chance to move forward, but Nick has already surrendered to the past. He goes to confront Tamara, now lost in a repeating memory loop, unwilling to face her husband's death. When Nick exposes Walter's infidelity, she orders her guards to kill him. But her head of security, a former soldier who once fought beside Nick, refuses. Nick escapes and turns his search back to the poorest districts, convinced May is hiding somewhere in the ruins. Instead, he finds a trap. A girl resembling May lures him to Cyrus Booth, the scarred ex-cop who has been stalking him. Cyrus admits the whole affair was a setup from the beginning. Nick fights to arrest him, but Cyrus escapes. The pursuit leads across rooftops and ends in a crumbling room with a piano. Their struggle crashes through the floor, plunging them underwater. Nick barely survives, injecting Cyrus with a sedative before dragging him back up. Desperate for answers, Nick dives into Cyrus's memories. What he sees crushes him. May's entire relationship with him had been staged. She studied his habits from others, rehearsed the moment she would lose her keys, left behind earrings, even practiced fake memories. All of it, a con designed to steal Elsa's recordings. After the theft, Cyrus killed Elsa. Her child was meant to die too, but May saved Freddie and fled. Even in betrayal, Nick still clings to the hope she cared. And then he finds proof. In Cyrus's memories, May appears again. The night someone knocked on his door, it had been her. She left an earring behind as a sign, but Cyrus captured her, tortured her with drugs, and broke her down. In her final act, May planted a clue about Freddie's location within those memories. Knowing Nick would one day see them, refusing further torment, she took a lethal dose of pills and leapt to her death. For Nick, the truth is unbearable. May is gone, and Cyrus is responsible. Consumed by rage, he forces Cyrus to relive his own worst memory, the moment he was beaten and set on fire by mercenaries. Digging deeper, Nick uncovers the larger truth. It wasn't Walter who ordered Elsa and Freddie's deaths, it was Sebastian. Driven by greed, Walter's son hired Cyrus to erase his half-brother and secure the inheritance. May was just a pawn in that scheme. In the end, Nick doesn't kill Sebastian. Instead, he leaves him with a gun, daring him to choose. Cowardice prevails, and the police take him alive. Cyrus is also captured, and Freddie is rescued. Afterward, Nick visits Emily. He confesses everything, knowing she'll testify, and that her memories will become evidence. He's ready to face prison for his actions, but prison doesn't frighten him anymore. Turning in Cyrus and Sebastian grants him one final freedom to live in his chosen memories. Nick enters the chamber and immerses himself in his happiest recollections of May. Outside, Miami burns. The poor rise up, tearing down the old order. The world drowns in chaos, but none of it touches him. For Nick Bannister, the choice is made to remain forever in the embrace of the woman he loved, even if it means surrendering to the past.